Okay, at this time, I will call to order the public hearing for the Muskego Norway School District. And this public hearing relates to the district's interest in submitting to the Department of Public Instruction a 2023-24 school calendar waiver to start school prior to September 1st, 2023 due to construction projects. Community members interested in making a comment on this topic must complete a comment card before the meeting starts. Once the board president calls your name, you must come up to the microphone, state your first and last name and address, and then make your comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. With due respect to citizens and in order to ensure adequate study of questions arising, board members are not expected to discuss issues presented at this time. This is an opportunity for the public to express their viewpoint specific to the 2023-24 calendar. At this time, I'm just going to ask our clerk to call a roll to put on record board members who are present.
Mrs. Boyer? Here. Mr. Zimmerman? Here. Mrs. Cotney? Here. Mr. Hyde? Here. Mrs. Blair? Here. Mr. Buckmaster?
Here.
And I am here, all present.
So at this time, are there any comments from the community regarding the public hearing on the 2023-24 request for a waiver or possible request? Going once, going twice. Hearing no comments or have received any comment card for public comment, I will close this public hearing. I'll call to order the Board of Education for the Muskego Norway School District. Verification of meeting posting. This meeting was posted in accordance with our state's open meeting laws. Attendance roll call.
We need to do this.
Yes.
Just again, even though we opened it up.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Mrs. Boyer? Here. Mr. Zimmerman? Here. Mrs. Cotney? Here. Mr. Hyde? Here. Mrs. Blair? Here. Mr. Buckmaster?
Here.
And
Item 1D, Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone who is able, please rise, remove your covers, and join Mrs. Boyer in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Terry. The agenda has been approved prior to our closed session. We will bypass item 2. We will move on to item 3, consent agenda. A motion is in order to approve the consent agenda in gross. Any discussion, or is there any item a board member wishes to remove for individual consideration? Hearing none, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 4, student report. Mr. Wen.
So at the high school, our cross-country teams had a police escort out of town on their way to Wisconsin Rapids because they competed in the WIA state championship meet. The girls' team took first place overall with 3 runners placing in the top 10, and those runners included Ella Ann Schultz, Noelle Junig, and Sarah Martins. The boys football team played against Muskego at the regional final game, and they played a great game, but they were defeated, and their season is now over. Student Council hosted the annual Spooktacular event on Saturday, the 29th. Girls swim and dive placed second as a team at their WIA sectional meet, and they went on to place 10th overall at state with multiple individual podium finishes. The robotics team hosted the American Society of Mechanical Engineering Milwaukee chapter meeting. At this meeting, the team was able to show off their 2022 season robot and present information regarding the different robot subsystems to all members. Student Council is currently hosting a school-wide food drive where each class is competing for the most collected items. All collected items are being donated to the Muskego Food Pantry. Recruited athletes were invited to publicly sign their national letters of intent during lunch last Wednesday. These athletes included Ryan Slonak and Kate Larson for swimming, Noelle Junig for running, Zach Olson for baseball, Ella Kay and Carly Greenthal for soccer. Choir and band students hosted the Tri-M Pops concert last Saturday night to showcase their amazing talents in music. The cross-country team also traveled to South Dakota to compete in the NXR Midwest Championship meet. And the school also hosted a planning for post-secondary options event for juniors and their families to help ensure all students have a solid plan for life after high school. At Lake to Noon this month, a school fundraiser called Battle of the Bills is being held. This event is an annual school competition where classes compete to raise money for Camp One Step. All 8th grade students were also given the opportunity to take a pre-ACT assessment, and this assessment serves as an indication of progress and ideas for movement, and it also provides students with career interest matching. On the 27th, Lake to Noon hosted a trunk or treat event outside in the parking lot for all students and families to attend. At Muskego Lakes, students also had the opportunity to take the pre-ACT assessment. Students also participated in a Veterans Honor Walk to highlight past and current service members. They also learned about the different branches of military and the various ways in which people serve. The Muskego Lake Student Council is hosting a school-wide t-shirt contest and Thanksgiving food drive this month. At Bay Lane, the PTO hosted a school-wide ornament fundraiser. Students were able to design and create an ornament in art class, and parents were able to purchase the designs. A group of veterans also announced a short assembly for all students to attend. This year's theme was American flag, and students were able to learn all about flag symbolism. The Peppermint Fair was also hosted at Bay Lane on November 3rd. At Lakeview, a new season of Destination Imagination is being started, and Destination Imagination offers students a unique opportunity to participate in challenging and motivating activities from things such as drama, writing, building, and creating. The school also hosted their annual Scholastic Book Fair. Parent-teachers were held on October 27th and November 22nd as well. At Mill Valley, reports from the 2022 Wisconsin Ford exam were released, and it was determined that Mill Valley in English language ranked 1 out of 57 elementary schools in Waukesha County, and in math they ranked 2nd. The school also hosted a school-wide penny war that ended last week, and all money raised from this fundraiser was donated to families in need for the upcoming holiday season. Mill Valley students and families are also participating in Stuff the Staff to show how thankful they are for their teachers by stuffing the lounge with their favorite treats and drinks.
Are there any questions for Mr. Want? Thank you, Mason. All right, moving on. Item 5, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Thompson.
Well, good evening. I am delighted to introduce Nancy and Rachel, who will be doing our annual Muskego Lakes report to the board this evening. Thank you so much for being here and for hosting this evening.
I see what middle schoolers are really like. We provided this at your spots. You should have a copy, and if anyone in the audience would like. All right, thank you all for being here. Again, I'm Rachel, Nancy. We're the principals here at Muskego Lakes. It's really fun having you all here. We get to host in the school we get to be in day out, and we have a beautiful school with so much to be grateful for. So we're excited to share a few things that we're really proud of and a few areas we are still working on as a school. So Nancy's going to get us started.
Okay, so one of the things that we are really proud of here at Muskego Lakes is our overall math achievement. As you can see on both Forward and iReady, we've had an overall increase over time, and that's led us to be placed second in the county out of 22 middle schools, being able to celebrate our success and continued growth in overall math achievement. Another area that we are extremely proud of is our literacy reading achievement. And as you can see here again, we have increased since 1819 in both our iReady and our Forward. And this has placed us in 4th among the middle schools in our county. One thing to note is that we do have 2 data sets there, iReady and Forward. iReady is given 3 times a year and Forward is given once. We keep track of both of these because they measure the same thing but give us a different lens in looking at our students' growth and achievement over time. Yep.
You also have some sample artifacts in front of you. So for those of you who have questions about iReady, you'll see there are some exemplars of iReady reading, and you'll see some samples from the Forward exam. So that should help you, for those interested on the differences between the two. And there's a front cover letting you know just the different grade levels and some of the passages that our students are expected to demonstrate proficiency on both of those assessments.
In addition, we work really hard here at Muskego Lakes to partner with our families. It's important to us to ensure that they have a voice in our schools, are able to give us input and feedback, and that has led us to an overall increase in our parent satisfaction. You can see the trend there. We've gone up for the last 4 years. Anything above a 4 we look at maintaining, but we can continue to push ourselves to increase our parent satisfaction overall. So if you take a look, we just wanted to highlight a few of the celebrations. The first being that what went up was that our school provides a safe environment for our students to learn. Again, anything over 4 you look to maintain, but we were able to increase that significantly. The next one, the teachers, staff, and administration demonstrated general concern for my child. That also went up. And that every child has an opportunity to be successful at this school went up significantly as well.
We're also especially proud we increased in my child's learning as a high priority at the school. I would recommend this school to other parents we're able to increase, as well as I'm proud to say I have a child at this school.
Another lens that we look at is our student engagement celebrations, and we are excited to share with you that our students say that their learning is important at the school. That increased, that they set learning goals and track their progress, and that their teachers hold them to very high expectations at the school. Those are 3 areas that we're very excited that our students can see that and recognize.
Our vision is connecting hearts and minds at Muskego Lakes, so a few other celebrations we wanted to note. Our staff sent 2,457 positive contacts to students and families last year. We brought a mentoring program back after COVID. We had 20 plus staff members, so they give up their time, which they have very little of during the school day, to invest in the lives of students who need a little bit of extra time and care. We hosted our first annual community day last year. Students made blankets for animal shelters and artwork for nursing homes. This year, we continued the tradition of our community days, finding ways to connect our students to service both in this community and beyond Muskego. We launched a homework center last year for students who need additional practice and support on academics. They can come during lunches, eat their lunches, and get help from peers and or adults. And then we supported students through a total of 436 mental health contacts in just last school year alone. While those are some celebrations, we also have some areas we are still working on, and we wanted to share a few of those with you as well. So in math, our overall achievement has increased, as Nancy shared, but you can see from the graph, the bar graph there, 7th grade over time had continued to lag behind the other grades. And so the team studied the item analysis from both the forward exam and the iReady, and they decided to add geometry as a standard of focus. That standard of focus in particular impacted many of the other skills, and so we found that to be a power standard that they added. And so we will guarantee that our students are proficient in 7th grade on geometry, and we believe that will impact that lag that you see in 7th grade math. And while there are areas of student engagement that we increased and we had action plans around, our overall student engagement actually dropped. Questions range from, I'm satisfied with the options in the lunchroom, to, I feel my bus driver treats us with respect, my school is clean. There's a wide range of questions. Just some of the, you can see we have a whole lot of strategies we're trying up there. One thing in particular, we are adding school honor assemblies this year where we get to recognize students for their hard work and effort as well as their different accomplishments, so that among their peers, the students get to see all the neat things that the students are doing. We have our student council. We have 2 new leads who stepped up, and they have a whole lot planned for our students, including some karaoke and trivia over lunches. We also have a student support team that sets attendance goals with our kids who have been truant in years past, and so we're providing wraparound support to try and hook those students up with co-curriculars, a mentor, and then weekly attendance goal setting. So just a few of the many ideas that we are working on to increase that overall student engagement, as well as trying to honor and working with Taher to get some food choices. That I think was the most popular comment on the student engagement survey was some of the sweets and junk food the kids want in the cafeteria. So. And finally, our last area that we have a little bit more to share with you on is reading achievement. While we are 4th in the county out of 20 schools, that's we are really proud of that accomplishment, but it is a relative weakness in this district. We've had math as a strength over time. And so we've spent a lot of time these last couple years focusing on literacy, and we've implemented and systemized some high-impact strategies, some that we found were working really well in math, and so we transferred them over to literacy, and then others were based on analysis that our school's leadership team did and then brought to the overall staff. So we have a video that's going to highlight these 4 strategies for you. It's about 5 minutes. One of the strategies is literacy spirals. Another is Article of the Week. So our students will read an expository text in both science and social studies every week. Error analysis is the 3rd high-impact strategy. And then literacy standards of focus trackers. So you'll hear from some of our teachers and students.
Because reading achievement is a relative weakness compared to math at Muskego Lakes, we continue to implement high-impact strategies school-wide in order to increase reading achievement.
When we look at spiraling, we're coming back to concepts, and that can help with working memory and cognitive flexibility. As we add complexity to those concepts, each time they're spiraled back, the connections within the brain become stronger. What happens then is the connections become faster. In other words, the learning becomes more automatic.
Spirals help me because they repetitively circle back to information that we've learned in class or in past years that I feel like I would not have remembered otherwise, and it's a really helpful way to keep it fresh in my mind.
The ELA department was really purposeful in designing them. We have 5 buckets that teachers plan for every time they make a spiral. There's Common Core academic vocabulary. The more academic vocabulary a student knows is a positive predictor of how they're going to do on standardized testing. The second bucket is inferring word meaning using context clues, which crosses every single subject area. The third skill that teachers are planning for is a standard of focus practice. So they are spiraling past, present, or future standards of focus mini skills every day. And then there is a skill check, which is prerequisite skills or non-standard of focus skills. The 5th bucket is forward skill review. Teachers analyze the forward data by standard, and there were a lot of the language and writing standards that teachers noticed that kids needed more practice on when they're designing spirals, and it has been such a labor of love. The amount of work that teachers have put into this is amazing, and there have been bigger impacts than what they originally thought. I'm really proud of the work that the teachers are doing.
By making the spirals ourselves as
breakable team spirals became tailored to what our students' needs were.
Spirals give a good opportunity to review what we learned
And spiral back your brain to remember what you have already learned.
and to see what we'll learn about in the future.
Through the spirals, we have been able to expose students to small, digestible increments, but it really adds up over time. And we even found a way to use it to practice for the TDA, that's the writing portion of Forward. This way, students were comfortable with the types of prompts, and many students said after the Forward that they came in with much more confidence, and actually we got great results.
They really help me because sometimes I forget things that will be important later on, but with them I remember that and I can use that skill later.
One of the reasons why we do Article of the Week, so we can read informational text when it's not just in literacy. We use Article of the Week in social studies to model and practice what close reading and analysis looks like for both expository text and primary text through the historical lens. The cold read that we do weekly helps our students get used to relying on context clues and inferences to identify the meaning of unknown words, the main ideas, and summarizing at the end of an article. We know that in social studies, this work is one of our levers for building cross-curricular skills and success on those future assessments. Article of the Week is designed to support the comprehension and fluency of student literacy when analyzing and responding to technical, informational, and expository text. What we're noticing is through weekly access with these types of text, students continue to develop those close reading skills, annotation processes, being able to cite evidence, and writing concisely supported rationale. Students are becoming more confident with their ability to comprehend informational text and their ability to organize their thoughts into more coherent and well-structured evidence-based writing. We do error analysis weekly to help students understand their misconceptions and where they went wrong, because oftentimes in literacy there are two right answers that are given, but they have to choose the one that is most correct. And this helps them focus on understanding their misconception and where they went wrong and how to fix it for the next time. I want them to look at what mistakes they made. This will give them the opportunity to process the question again and to pick a new answer. In addition to just going through and trying again, I do ask that they justify their thinking. They have to explain why their new answer is correct and why the old one is not correct. They would work on this independently, and then we would meet together to confer about their results. Sometimes they're making silly mistakes. They realize that they got it wrong because they asked for two answers and they only picked one. So that's something that they can apply to future assessments. Sometimes we'll work together in a group to analyze questions together when students have the same questions wrong. And hearing feedback from other students also helps them to build their confidence and realize that they're not the only ones making the mistakes. Here at Muskego, Norway, we use SOAFs. SOAF stands for Standards of Focus. These are standards that teachers have identified as priorities.
To stay aware of their progress towards these standards of focus, students use SOAF trackers. These trackers put students in control of their learning because they're setting goals, they're recording their own progress on multiple aspects of the standard. It gives them a sense of accomplishment and helps them to continue to work towards their goals in that standard and provides feedback on next steps. Parents are aware of the SOAF trackers, the students share them with them, and then they are able to talk about the standards with their children at home.
We use SOAF trackers in literacy. We take a pretest about what we are going to learn in class. Then after we take the pretest, we see our score and write about what we are proud of and what we need to work on. Then we set goals. After the post-test, we go onto our SOAF tracker and write our score down. That way we can see if we're getting better at the standard.
In literacy, I know that when I take standards mastery, I can track my progress with my score, so I know how I'm doing and how my family knows how I'm doing. Then, my parents and I can see if I'm proficient.
As a district, we are focused on continuous improvement. So at Muskego Lakes, we regularly analyze our data and reflect on our practices in order to systematize high-impact strategies school-wide.
Are there any questions from the board or any comments? Yes.
So, how
how effective are the self-assessments from the students? I mean, I remember when I was that age, it was pretty much, no, I did everything right. It's, how effective is that?
So they're looking at the results on something in order to reflect. So they're not just deciding how they think they do, they're looking at the pretest score, and then they're looking at what the questions were about in order to decide what they need to do next. So it's really tied to their data, and then they have to pick a next step that they're going to do in order to get better at that particular skill. So
And they're pretty, I don't want to say accurate, but they're very focused on that. I mean, you're seeing positive results out of that?
yeah, I mean, the kids are then driven to want to improve over time. There's some standard options in every class. Like you can meet with the teacher one-on-one, you can join a skill group, you can do some additional practice. So there's a bank of ideas they can do based on their learning style and what works best for them. But the teachers set up the assessments in a way where they know if they got question 2 wrong, they need to go back and work on this particular skill. So I think that helps as well.
Thanks.
Yes?
So the students' engagement response went down just a little. I mean, it's not much, but was there an area of focus that you saw? Was it more bus related versus like activities that they didn't feel were available, or was there a highlight that you could focus on?
That's a good question. We ended up disaggregating the data, and so each grade level chose a focus based on, it was lower in 8th grade was students respecting students. In 5th grade, it was my teachers asked me how I learn best. And so depending on the grade level, they chose a different area, and then the teacher teams meet on our professional development days, and they progress monitor on that one question over time and come up with an action step, because what an 8th grade team would do might be different than a 5th grade approach. So we really distributed it to the teachers to pick those specific areas.
I've got a couple. So I really appreciate not only identifying the celebrations, but the challenges. I think that's really important. And I think we expect it, and we believe everyone's doing it, but to actually be transparent and show that, and how you're trying to avoid any sort of patterns, and you're plugging these gaps as it comes along. I think that's totally powerful. So thank you for walking us through that. And one of the items, that error analysis, I was able to actually witness here at the school, walking around. And I found that really intriguing when you can connect, that action item to what you're trying to do. So thank you and your staff for that. With Tracy, the student engagement, I don't necessarily know outside of the buses, But the one question I did have for you is, and I'm curious about the mindset that you've instilled in the schools as far as social media presence. I mean, this school is so active on social media where I don't think there's a day that you don't know what's going on in Muskego Lakes. It is incredible. So how that happened when Muskego Lakes opened, and how you've gotten your staff to just plug away at that. I mean, I think that's totally awesome. And so thank you for doing that too. So that's all I had. Oh, and I love that first slide. So just so you know.
I'll take that $10 later, Chris.
Well, thank you again very much.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. Thank you. Okay, the second item in the superintendent's report is just a reminder to the board, the WASB Joint Convention is happening in January. So if you're interested in attending, Lori will take your names and she will register for you if you'd like her to do that on your behalf. If you know today, you can just tell her right now that you want her to register you. I want you to register me, please, Lori. You have to be there. All right, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Moving on, item 6, other reports, President's report. I just have one item regarding Veterans Day. Today's the official day, but it's celebrated on Friday. And I found it really, really nice, again, that the Muskego schools, in their own ways, to celebrate this. And, you know, uniquely, I was able to attend a hospice with Amy Morgan had reached out, and, you know, I went there to help her out, and looking at the looks on their faces, all these veterans in hospice when they receive all of these letters from students. It was just an incredible sight. So I thought that's just amazing, and I know all schools do this, and it's not just our school, it's, you know, across the county and the state, but it was nice to know it does make a difference, and so I appreciate that very much. Outside of that, that is all I have for the president's report. Clerk's report.
Clerk's report. So 2 school board positions are up for election in 2023 for 3-year terms. Chris Buckmaster and Robert Bowman. The notice of school board election will be published in the Wednesday, November 16th, 2022 edition of the Waukesha County Now. Interested district residents who are eligible may file a declaration of candidacy and a campaign registration statement at the Educational Services Center, South 87 West 18763 Woods Road in Muskego between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, beginning December 1st, 2022, and the deadline for filing is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. A primary election, if necessary, will take place on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. The spring election will take place on Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. If an incumbent is not running for re-election, a written declaration of non-candidacy should be provided at the Educational Services Center no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, December 23rd, 2022. The term of office for candidates elected at the spring election is April 24th, 2023 to April 27th, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. And as far as the next item is board member reports. Mrs. Blair.
I submitted the CISA one. I wanted to point out 3 things. The last 3, the science of happiness. I don't know if you can maybe push that out to the teachers. It's like a way to kind of cope with teaching in general. And then the last 2, the regulation and understanding sensory, are both virtual and free. So again, like that, I think that would be more through the special needs department and stuff. So those 2 or 3 things I think would be kind of out. And then I did reach out to all of the art teachers in the district to hope that they will submit something at the school board conference. So fingers crossed that we get picked and things go well. So.
And again, thank you for adding the links and the shortness of that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
They were excited. I got lots of feedback from it, so that I'm hoping.
Good deal. Okay, thank you, Tracy. Mr. Hyde.
Just briefly, last weekend we had our WASB Board of Directors meeting, and focus essentially was on the convention that's coming up. There's going to be a lot of good speakers. I encourage everybody on the board to just check out the site, see if there's something you're interested in attending. It's always a great event. You don't have to be down there every day for the entire time, but usually there's something good going on. Who's our delegate this year?
That would be Mr. Zimmerman, and the alternate, thank you, would be Lori Conti.
Well, hopefully, the beginning, they just had this past weekend also was the second meeting for the Policy and Resolution Committee. And I haven't gotten any feedback yet exactly what came out of that, but that should be coming our way shortly, and to our delegate and our alternate. So if you have any questions, see me, and I'll be happy to try and answer the process anyways. I can't answer on the policies themselves. That's all I have. still got like 3 votes on it.
Yes, we do.
We do. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Mrs. Conti? No. Mr. Zimmerman? Mrs. Boyer? Mr. Bowman?
I do. So it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to serve on the school board for these past years. I think we've done some great things, but there's also great things coming up in the near future as well. So I will be running for re-election. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. And under board member reports, I have one. I've made it no secret that this would be my last term, and that is what I'm standing by. So I have officially submitted my declaration of non-candidacy, and but I do agree. We've done some great things, and there'll be a press release coming out on this. But it's been an awesome experience. I would recommend to anyone who would like to be engaged on the board. It would be, it's really a rewarding experience. So, but it's been a pleasure these past 9 years. So, and that would conclude the board member reports. Going on to item 6D, committee reports. Mrs. Boyer.
Tonight we had our Educational Services Committee meeting. We just went over some changes on the middle school academic guidebook, some minor changes, additions that needed to be made to update it. And then we talked about a new book that a teacher is starting to look at for a class at the high school, Principles of Environmental Science, Inquire and Application. And that's going to be going to our Curriculum Planning Committee, which is also known as the CPC, if you hear that. They will be taking that for review in December. And the goal would be to bring that back to the board then for, or to the committee, to our committee, to look at it and determine if we would approve it or not in March, and to the board after that. And if possible, that book would be implemented next school year. But if it doesn't, if the timeline doesn't go that way, that's okay as well. The class will still continue, and we will adjust. So that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyer. Moving on to item 7, resolution action items. Department of Public Instruction 2023-24 school calendar start date waiver.
Motion to approve the district's submission of a DPI waiver for an early start to the 2023-24 school year.
Okay, any discussion? So at this point, this was the matter that was before as a public hearing, okay? And then as we did with Muskego Lakes, when Muskego Lakes was being built, staff takes a look at construction schedules, and then the master planning team has input, and it's basically put together a schedule. It can certainly be amended, modified, but it's simply a schedule provided by our construction contractor on the time frame that they would like to be in the schools. And so in order to meet the legal requirements to get the public hearing in and a waiver approved, this is really just if we want to do this or if we don't, or if we want to amend it. So before you is the draft waiver, and you can read the public content down there. So any discussion on this? Please.
I think we have a lot of feedback on the start date. 2 issues arise. One was addressed by the graduation date and given options to that class's family to decide. The other one was that 2 weeks is too early for childcare purposes. A lot of families use the summer programs in other locations, not just in our district, and they don't start their summer programs until after in June. And 2 weeks is kind of hard for multiple families to figure out childcare for an extended amount of time. They can do 1 week, so I would recommend and possibly doing the 28th instead of the 21st. We can still start early, but 1 week would be more doable rather than 2 weeks with childcare purposes in mind.
Thank you. So on this specific item, it's under resolution action. That's mainly because of timing. So, so in this case, I would ask Dr. Thompson and her staff to feel free to comment on this.
So the pardon me, the calendar will come separate, and that'll be under discussion. This is only allowing us to submit a waiver. It could be for 1 day, it could be for 2 weeks, it could be for a month. It's just approval for us to be able to go forward with the waiver. That's it. The calendar itself will come forward to the board in discussion tonight and then action in December. So if we can go ahead with the waiver, you guys will have more discussion about the actual calendar in the discussion items, and then over the next month.
Thank you. So when we
You're
did
welcome.
this for Muskego Lakes, so before the waiver is requested, that requires board approval, right? Okay. So then I don't sign anything until the board approves it. So the draft before us is don't mind the dates. You're saying the draft is just the draft?
Yes, yeah, it just says before December 1st.
No, it's got a date in
Yeah,
there.
it's got a date, August 21st.
Okay, we can, this
Yeah.
is just a draft, yeah, so we
Yeah,
can
that's
change
why I
that,
asked.
that's what you, yeah.
Yeah, because the
absolutely,
dates, but
yeah.
I got it. So then approving this mainly gives us back, when Muskego Lakes was built, the ability to request the waiver because we legally
Yes.
had the hearing and we had it before us, and then the calendar, and this will come back separately.
Yes, so we will adjust this. If
Okay.
in the discussion, the board is not comfortable with, the calendar that's being brought forward for the discussion, this will reflect whatever the board is comfortable with.
Got it.
And it could be even blank from the standpoint of which date. We could just say in August, so.
So when we submit this to the DPI, we could just say that, right? And
Yeah.
then once we approve our calendar, then those dates would reflect the actual dates that we're asking to
And if
start
not,
early.
we'll get back to
Okay.
the board on that, but yeah.
You can just
As-
use that same line that you have officially requesting a waiver to the September 1st school year. Right. Sorry.
Thank you.
On the first line, it says Muskego Norway is officially requesting a waiver to the September 1st school day start. So they could just use that for your line. Yeah.
So does the board have any other comment on this, knowing that it will be coming back, but we want to have this basically in our pocket should we choose to use it? That's the deal, so. Okay, having no other discussion, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Welcome.
Okay, moving on to item 8A, 2023-24 budget calendar. So you have before you, which Julie always puts before us, the next budget calendar. Any questions or comments? It's fairly certain and standard, and she does an awesome job at this, so.
Annual board meeting is October 23rd.
Got it. Okay. All right, no other discussion on that. We'll move on. Item 8B, policy revisions to 0100, 2260.02, 2416, 2460.03, 2700.01, 3120.04, 4120.04, 3121, 4121, 3210, 3425, 4425, 5113, 5340, 5517.01, 5780, 8146, 8740, and administrative guidelines 3440B, 4440B, and 8330. Motion, or go ahead. There's no motion. So what we have before us is the first reading of policy changes that take 3 readings unless the board, by unanimous consent, decides to waive that. So I'm not seeing any of these here that would fall into that category. So this would be the first shot at any of the draft policy revisions that you see. Let's see here. All right, my screen went blank here for a second. So on item 8, so I've got some that say 8, but I'm assuming it's 8B. I'll just call the names here. So there are 3 comment cards from members of the public. Jessica Pemble. Am I saying that correct? If you could step up to the podium, please, and state your name, address, and then we'll start the clock, okay?
Jessica Pemble, 8561 Francis Way in Wind Lake. I just had questions when it said about no signs of anything in the classrooms with posters that were of religious leanings or political. I felt that was a little gray. So I wondered who decides what is okay and what isn't. If that's going to be like some classrooms have presidential posters with quotes on them. If it's Ronald Reagan or Obama, is that not going to be allowed anymore? So I just had questions about how that's going to work.
Dr. Thompson, did you want to address that as we?
Sure, I can address it, certainly. And that has been the case since before this has been written also. So we just, if there are items that are on walls or that would indicate a person's personal reflection of what their standpoint is from a political viewpoint, or if it leans in one way over another way. So if there are presidential quotes up for, all of the presidents or, some, on both ends, then that would of course not be an issue. So, but most situations in schools, we do have to, have a conversation about if something would be brought up where somebody would feel that an item represents something, we would have a discussion about it.
So is that going to include like rainbow flags and things like that, or any posters that have that in? Is that no longer going to be allowed?
Well, if there are flags and things that represent a particular political party,
But
yes,
does the
then-
rainbow flag actually represent a political party?
If it leans toward a particular political entity, then we would have a discussion about that.
And then with religion, like what about a person wearing a cross necklace or anything like that? Is that no longer going to be allowed?
That's allowed.
Why? How is that allowed but other things aren't?
It would depend on if there's a line that can be crossed, and so we would have to have those discussions. So if somebody was wearing a T-shirt that would say, follow me to, XYZ or something like that, we would have to have a discussion about that as well.
I just feel this is really a gray area and you guys are creating more of a problem than there ever has been. What prompted this? Have there been problems? Have there been complaints?
What we do is we try our hardest to create some opportunities for putting some black and white into very gray. So when we have an opportunity to bring some clarity to some of the policies or practices, that's our intent. But of course, there's still a lot of gray, and so we have to work within that, and that's where conversations happen, and we work with our staff, and we just want to make sure that we're doing the best we can for the clarities for our staff.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next parent, and I'm sorry, I'm going to try to say this, Lisa Oland. Is that the correct? Is that correct? If you could step up, please, and state your name and address and your comments.
My name is Lisa Oland. Address is W163S6922 Oak Ridge Lane in Muskego. Should I wait until you start the timer? Okay. So speaking just a little bit more on the points that Jessica was making about the rainbow flags or the pride flags, and that they have more of a political leaning and not allowing them to be allowed. I would just urge you all to really consider what message that sends to our students who are part of the LGBTQ community. Speaking from my own personal experience, I am the parent of a trans child. And I guess for me, it sounds almost silly to say that those flags have a political leaning or a religious leaning, since I'm also a very conservative Lutheran and have never voted anything but a straight Republican ticket. But I love my child and I support them, and so I still have a pride flag hanging in my office at my work. And the conversation that I had with my child surrounding this is about the ease of them to be able to identify which staff members they can feel safe with. And it's not real easy for them always to be able to identify that. And so the presence of that sort of representation can very easily tell them that this is a safe person for them to be able to come to. And keeping in mind that I don't have the statistics in front of me, but a lot of our LGBTQ kids suffer from mental health around the safety and the support issue. I think you're taking a really important thing away from those children to be able to identify which adults that they feel that they can be themselves around, especially since a lot of them they don't have that in their home. My child does. I regularly have several of their friends, also from Muskego High School, at my house because they know that's a safe space for them, and they don't have that at home. So I would just urge you to really think about the message that you're sending to those kids and their place in our school and our community. Also, on the issue of needing parental consent to use their preferred pronouns and names. This was actually brought to my attention a couple months ago, and I instantly reached out to our guidance counselor, and our parental consent is already on file and spoken. But there are those kids that don't have that safe space, and they may not have shared this part of them with their family yet. And so requiring that parental consent is basically forcefully outing them to their parents when they may not be ready to do so. And that's going to have a very harmful effect on their mental health. That's all.
Next we have a Mrs. Ann Zilke.
If anybody does want the statistics on LGBTQ kids who have committed suicide or attempted suicide, I do have those, so I can give those to you. So I'm going to actually speak on two different policies. So the first is 8330, which is the student records policy. This is in fact Trans Awareness Week, and instead of forcing teachers to potentially out trans and non-binary students, we should be working to protect our trans youth and support each student in their individual journey. Because policies like this do nothing to better the lives or educational experiences of our students and have the potential, real potential, to put the lives of our trans and non-binary students at risk. According to the 2021 Trevor Project survey on LGBTQ youth mental health, 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the last year, including more than half of transgender and non-binary youth. And LGBTQ youth who had access to safe spaces, including schools, that affirmed their sexual orientation and gender identity reported lower rates of attempting suicide. So I think this is where our focus needs to be. It is our responsibility as a community. It is your responsibility as our Board of Education and as our school district to create safe learning environments for all of our students. Our trans and non-binary students deserve to feel loved and supported in their learning environment and be able to learn free from discrimination and fear. So just as our previous speaker said, just consider seriously how your actions can have unintended consequences for our students. And the second policy is 3210, that's the staff ethics and conduct that Jessica spoke to. 2 weeks ago at the annual meeting, You all attempted to defend your record as a board when faced with legitimate scrutiny from community members, saying multiple times that you support our teachers and staff. It's not enough to claim to respect our teachers. You need to show them through your actions. So once again, I stand here to tell you that without our wonderful teachers and staff, we as a district have nothing. I can't fathom the intent of a policy change like this, but it has the very real perception of being politically motivated and anti-teacher. The questions about how it works is unending. Who decides what's political or religious? What policy would a staff member be able to wear a hijab at work, a necklace with a crucifix, religious or political tattoos, a rainbow flag lanyard, a sticker on their water bottle that says you belong, a t-shirt that promotes inclusion, and again, who decides? How far does this go? The truth is, religious liberty and freedom of expression are both enshrined in our Constitution. And while public school districts must be careful, as always, not to violate the Establishment Clause, teachers and staff do not shed their constitutional rights when they enter a classroom. And you shouldn't ask them to. So I stand with our teachers and their ability to follow the Establishment Clause without this type of policy change, and you should join me. And Kelly, can we get clarity on whether or not, are you saying that a rainbow flag without any language on it is allowed or not allowed?
It would depend on the context. So it would have to, everything is contextual.
Right. So I mean, so if a high school teacher today or tomorrow brought a rainbow flag with nothing else on it, no language, and put it in their classroom, what would that mean for that teacher?
It would mean different things, so we would have to have a conversation. I'm not sure.
Okay, but I mean, what would it mean for this policy?
Okay, I think we're good with this. Okay.
Right, so I mean, but can we get some clarity on that?
Well, it's
Well,
hypothetical.
well, but you're asking a specific situation that, what? I mean, you would have to contact, you can talk to the superintendent off hours on that, and you can describe the situation, Ann, but the purpose of your comments here are specific to the policy change, so.
Correct. But I think we're not getting any clarity on
Well, we
the
have three.
intent of the policy change.
Totally understand it. We've
Right.
got 3 of these that we're going to go through. And if the policy gets amended or changes as you move on, feel free to come up and speak on that. I don't know. But specific circumstances are not at argument here or on debate here of what would happen in a school. If you had some, you could forward it to Dr. Thompson. But those are pretty hard to come by unless they're actually happening. So if you have a specific circumstance, you could forward it to her.
No, I'm asking what the intent of the policy is, because we're talking about changing a policy, correct? So what is the intent of the policy regarding flags?
Yeah, I think for us, it's more clarification. So we're just like you going through this and going through the public comment period, and as you are too. And
Right. So that's what
we'll-
we're looking for, is clarification on exactly what this means.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do too. So,
Okay, that's as clear as mud, Chris.
well, I don't think it's as clear as mud. I mean, we receive feedback from a number of places too. So anything that's happening here, right, is always at the behest in some way, shape, or form of the board. So this policy was drafted, and we're reviewing it, and we're asking for public comment, and that's it. So you've made your comment. If you have a specific case that you'd like to address with Dr. Thompson, you can outside of the board. But right now, we're just looking for public comment.
Right. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Zilke. Do you have a copy of that? Oh, just the data? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Zilke. And then we have one more comment, or public comment. Jill Ossie?
It's Ozzy.
Ossie, all right, thank you. If you could step up, please, state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jill Ozzie. My address is W151 S7043 Cornell Circle number 5 in Muskego. Welcome to Muskego Lakes. My son attends this school, so it's nice to see you guys all here. For those of you who are not familiar with my name, I was the PTO president at Test Corners for the last 2 years that it was in, that the building was open. So this is not my first board meeting, this is my first public comments. I also have quite a few questions on these policy revisions. When you entered Muskego Lakes, if you came in through the main doors, you may have seen a very large mural that says connecting hearts and minds through acceptance, empowerment, and achievement. I'm not seeing a whole lot of acceptance from the board in these policy revisions. And as a parent, as a former PTO member, as a former student, I'm an alumni of Muskego Norway School District, I'm disappointed. I don't understand the reason why these policies are being revised. What happened? What was the catalyst? What was the cause for saying, okay, we have these policies in place, but I think we need to change these in order to, make sure that, excuse me, I'm going to read from the amendment of records, that the student's personal information, including preferred name, pronouns, gender, race classifications, etc., must be submitted to the district/school in order for the change to be effectuated and used within any of the operations of the district/school. The point has already been made about trans students, so I won't say that again. But a safe place for a student is a real thing. You all heard from Mrs. Milton in the dinner before the school board meeting, that music is her passion, and she shared that, and her students shared that passion. For those students, and let's be real, the music, theater, drama community has a much higher representation, of LGBTQ kids than many other groups. This is their safe space, because they feel accepted. If they were less accepted, they wouldn't be as involved in the students. You're hearing information from the Muskego Lake staff about student engagement. What do you think will be the effect of student engagement for policies like these, where they come into a school and, okay, we're not sure that we can be comfortable to be ourselves with these teachers. And a student who's not comfortable to be themselves is not going to excel in academics, is not going to excel socially. It's a whole package. So along with everyone else, I would strongly urge you to reconsider the motivations behind a policy change such as this. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You're creating more confusion. You say that you want to have more clarification. A very specific example was provided to you about a flag. We're asking for clarification. You're refusing to give it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the public comment portion of the discussion. Now the board, if there is any discussion on any of these items that the board would like to discuss here tonight, or again, we will be reviewing these in December and then again finally in January. If you have questions or comments, if you want to, any of the comments or questions that were made by the public here this evening, we can reach out to staff and work through that process. So are there any other comments or discussion items that the board would like to specifically address on these policies tonight? I will just make one comment and then we're done. When these policies come forward, like it or not, we always struggle with this balance, right? And when policies come forward, they come forward typically to align, right, with state law or to align with other schools, or simply as a result of the majority of what our community wants. So neither has to happen, or neither necessarily has to be agreed upon by everyone, but that's generally how policies are created. So if it's not legal, it's by what we consider to be the majority of what our school district wants. So if it helps you to address your comments at the next few meetings, I would look to that and identify what the majority you think of the district want. So moving on. Yep.
I just want to represent the teachers in this school district, that I don't think there's one teacher in our school district that would feel that they wouldn't want a student to come to them in regards to any problem that they have. So to single them out in the opposite direction, to say that they're not available, or they're not sympathetic, or they're not empathetic, or they're not, I have a hard time with that. Because I think we have phenomenal teachers in the school district that are looking out for all kids in the district. So
No, we're not, we can't comment. We can't comment. So, all right, so moving on, item 8C, the middle school academic guidebook. Any comments or concerns on this? Any discussion on it? Yeah, Terry, I think this is what your committee reviewed, right? Yep.
Yeah, we reviewed that. We are fine with that moving forward. We didn't have any problems with the changes on there.
Okay, having no discussion on this, we're good. Moving on, item 8D, 2023-24 school calendar. So, are you looking for thoughts now? By the
Has the
overview is
board-
fine.
Okay.
I'd like an overview.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, so thank you. Since the very start of the school year, the very first week, we have been meeting as a calendar committee to put together a draft calendar. In large part, we've looked at previous survey results from our staff, from our parents and regional districts, to help us make a determination as to some of what you see on the calendar. As you know, with construction projects, you know, we were asking, and thank you for consideration of the exemption to the school start. Back in 2017-18, we actually had an early start, and the sequence of dates is almost identical to what you see in the 23-24 calendar. We did start on August 24th. The reason why the calendar committee made the recommendation to start on August 21st next year is just given the difference between in the construction environment, building environment, from 2017-18 to present day. There are significant differences, and the construction company could benefit from an additional 3 days. I guess the only other thing that I would comment on, graduation date. We are going to be surveying parents as far as their preference and taking a look at that particular data for graduation of 2024.
Any comments?
Yeah.
So is there, sorry, the difference between 1 and 2 weeks, Jeff, how big a deal is that? And what are the ramifications if we were to go long in construction? I mean, how long is it, let me back up. How long is the construction time frame? Is it like, are we really gonna get it done all in one summer?
No, actually, construction should begin this spring.
Okay.
And go through the summer, but there are certain parts of the building that we cannot touch until the end of next school year. So that's why we're looking to be able to access those parts of the building, demo those parts of the building with no students or staff in there, and then allow us that amount of time for the summer of 2024 to get those projects done.
Okay, so then that being said, if we need to demo some of it, and that's why we need students out of the building, right? The tail end of construction is oftentimes kind of your finishes, right? And,
Yep.
and your check. So if we were to go 1 week, And we found midsummer that wasn't sufficient, and we need to bump it into the beginning of the following school year. If it's just the finishing touches and some of the, patching here or there, is that big a deal? Or does that mean that, we can't even have the students back in the classroom?
Yeah, I think that would be the determination of the city and an occupancy permit. And I can't speak for what they would say to that particular piece.
Did we run into anything like that here?
We did not.
And how many weeks early did we go here? I can't recall.
We started a week and a half earlier than our typical school year the last time. But again, the reason why the team moved forward with the recommendation that we have is because today, construction environment's vastly different than back in 2017-18. And I think C.G. Schmidt will work with whatever we give them. There are a lot of unknowns, but I just think, I think the disturbance to the community, the busing, transportation, childcare, if in fact things are delayed, it could be pretty significant. Now, could we go to DPI midsummer if we're noticing something and ask for a different calendar? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that question. And could that cause a disruption to families? Probably would.
But that would be the opposite effect then, right? Then we're moving it
Correct.
Later for
Correct.
that, for 24. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I think in general, it's good that we're getting ahead of the game here. So what's ever decided, right? Parents have that option to choose, right? They can plan their vacations and whatnot. But I was somewhat looking at the calendar and the way the days fall. I don't know if it's even possible to do a week and a half. I initially thought, okay, a week. And that was probably, that didn't, that sat fine. Certainly, I'll be interested to see what alternative graduation dates come up, right? And I'm, beyond what the, Memorial Day one. So when do we have to lock this in? Is there a date that we have to actually make this request?
We'll go forward with.
Okay.
And try to be as general as possible, and we'll check in on that. But as far as the calendar goes, again, the sooner we can let people, our community know about that, the better. But this would be coming, the calendar would be coming back in December for.
So I guess, how did we do Muskego Lakes? Did we ask for any, or I don't know if we had time. Did we?
Muskego Lakes didn't matter, it was Mill Valley.
Oh, that's right. And, well, actually, it was, Mill Valley was part of the reason, but then getting out of Bay Lane was the other one, right? Because that was the real challenge, was we needed to have Bay Lane be an elementary school, right? Before but I don't think we sent surveys out or anything at that point, because I don't think we decided it was a surveyable event. It was mainly, this is something that either we had to do or not, right, in order to accommodate the school year. So I guess if C.G. Schmidt and the construction crew team is saying that if we don't do A, then we jeopardize B, right? And B would be the start date of Muskego High School. It would make it even more, but I mean, there would be safety hazards, there would be construction on site. I mean, I'm assuming we're betting up against that, right? Where it's the high school that we're concerned about.
Personally, right?
Well, and most of the high schools already in session that early. I know tennis starts the second week of August, and football starts the first or second week of August.
This survey we're going to be doing, are we going to be asking the parents how it will affect them, whether one date or the other is going to make a difference?
We're only going to be surving for graduation.
Just the graduation.
That's it, right? And that'll
Is there any
probably
way we
happen
can
later.
get some feedback from parents, primarily elementary students? Because if it's not really going to affect more than a couple families, I don't see it as a real issue, but if there is a broad impact to the families out there, we may want to reconsider that. I mean, we have another, our next
Did we
meeting's in what?
receive any issues in 2017 when we started early for middle school, for elementary, middle school? I don't believe.
I mean, I know it's kind of late to kind of get that feedback, you know, accurately in time for our next meeting. But is there any way we can get some idea how that's going to impact?
So, we've surveyed our parents in the past, in that we've asked the question, if we could start the school year prior to September 1st, please prioritize what you want. Would it be 1 week, 2 week, 3 week? And there wasn't much of a difference between 1 week and 2 weeks as far as parent response.
And that's just in general if the state
That's
were to
just
lift
in
the cap?
general if state law was different. We've asked that question multiple times, and the data comes back the same every time.
I mean, the one challenge of a survey in this case is that we have a hard time conveying, I mean, and I'm not so sure a parent survey would overrule a safety, right? So
Right, because
you
it's
know,
such a short time frame.
Right, and we had that, right? Remember, I think you brought that up too at the last one, and you know, we were kind of like, oh yeah, and you know, they walked us through, and I'm assuming that that's the same thing here, where the construction folks are like saying, look, if we get this extra time, we can be out of so much percent of the area, it will impact students that much less, right? I mean, that's what we did during the last one, and that was even a heavier challenge, I think, because we were dealing with 4 schools, right? So.
Later or a week later and end school a week later. So like we would end this school year, let's say the 28th, and then the following school year, 24-25, we'd start school a week later. That would be 2 weeks. So it would be after Labor Day week. We would go back to school. So that would give them those 2 weeks, and then it would spread potentially the childcare, other concerns, not in one general area, but over the course of a longer period, so families can have an easier time trying to find childcare. Because that was the main concern I got from more than one family, was the childcare purpose. And that way, it spreads it out, so you're not trying to find childcare for 2 consecutive weeks, but 1 week here and then 1 week 3 months down the road.
The only thing I can see, I thought about that actually as I was looking at options. The only thing that I can see as being a challenge is now you're affecting 2 separate school years, right? So now it's not just one class, it's 2 classes, right? 2 classes, this year's juniors and then seniors. Plus, then are you pushing graduation further into June, like almost 3rd week of June or 4th week of June by doing that? Either that or you've got to compress the number of off days that you have during the year. So, I mean, am I off on that, Jeff, that would be that challenge? Because now you're affecting 2 graduation dates, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right. You delay someone's summer vacation by another week. And then also our AP students, they would be disadvantaged as well. We already know that schools across the country start earlier than the state of Wisconsin. So to get through all of that AP curriculum, by the time they take the AP test, it would further disadvantage our kids. It would put them a week further back for that 24-25 school year.
We could also look at talking with champions to start a program early. Like if that is the hang up for that week of August 21st, we could talk with champions to see if they would provide something district-wide for childcare during that, something,
So
support.
The other thing I thought about was I think our challenge this year is different somewhat than the last referendum we had. Last year was logistics and timing. This year, isn't it more weather? We're kind of building this in if there's weather events that happen that delay construction. I mean, isn't that what this is for generally? Because 2 weeks, I guess if the construction has to stop here, and here. So, I'm just trying to think, is it possible that we would, yes, I don't know, wait, because we have to get the calendar out, because we may not even need it. I'm guessing, but maybe we do. So how do you know? But I'm just thinking it's probably more for that than, I guess I have a difficult time, I'll just end with starting earlier than a week. And yeah, graduation, I'll be interested in some alternative date than Memorial Day. That's a tough one, but I got it. You got to put something out. So,
We're talking something nine months out.
yeah.
That should be enough time to help parents plan, and if the parents do say they need that feedback, maybe we can, like Kelly said, have something with Champions early.
Well, and I think I misspoke. So we're talking about June of 2024 that the parents are concerned about with childcare in the end of May of 2024.
Yeah, it's this year's juniors.
So, I mean, that's a
Well,
year and a
either direction,
half.
either
That's a year and a
direction.
half, and I'm certain that we could look to partner with Champions to have something available for that end of May time. And we can have that conversation with Champions between now and December when we come back to say, Champions will, you know, I mean, they already serve our children, and so they could certainly look to zero in on that, if that's the issue, if that's the issue that's holding this up.
So then I guess you've got our feedback, the graduation date, did the early start, maybe a week.
Is the board expecting to have survey results for graduation by December 14th? Or are you just, I mean, like, those dates are there, it's not gonna impact, or what, does that impact, I mean,
Can we get an accurate accounting by then? Will there be enough feedback, do you think, or?
well, we
And we
can,
can always change the graduation date.
even
we
if
need
you
to.
have, right.
Well, we
I
could
mean,
wait till January and just publish the calendar in January. You can request the dates from the DPI now, but we can publish our calendar in January if you feel that's enough time to get the graduation.
Okay, as long as we know if,
Sample back.
I think DPI is going to want to see your calendar.
Oh, they will?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had to submit it the last time.
Okay.
So I believe they're going to want to see that. One of my questions would be, if the board is hesitant and the direction is, you know what, we don't want to go the full 2 weeks, then my question would be, why would we survey our parents for graduation? Because graduation would be pushed back then
to the
following
following
week.
weekend.
So we
Yeah.
shouldn't even survey them then. The only reason why I would see surveying them would be if in fact any type of feedback that we might ascertain would help steer the direction of the board for a decision.
Well, here, let's make this easy. So for starting 2 weeks early, just yay or nay? Just, Tracy?
I want to follow whatever the construction people say that we should do. So if they say 2 weeks, 2 weeks, I should.
Okay,
I
Brett?
would-
Unless there's something compelling where we have numerous families that are gonna have issues with it, I would stick with the construction recommendations from C.G. Schmidt.
Okay. Kevin?
I would push for the 1 week because I've been contacted by.
Okay. Terry?
I also would not be in favor of 2 weeks. I have also had staff come to me with concerns because you're pushing them to August 7th. I would like to see us maybe follow the same calendar if possible that we did the last time we did construction. And that would have been like I believe the Thursday before. So it would have been a week, and then you had Thursday, Friday, and then that full week. I'd be okay with that.
Bob?
Yeah, I'm concerned about a full 2 weeks, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I'm concerned about a full 2 weeks, so I think that's your feedback there. So look and see what C.G. Schmidt can do with a week, and then that makes the graduation point moot. If C.G. Schmidt can come back and craft a schedule with a 1 week early start, let's see
1
what.
week or 1.5 weeks?
Let me speak to that.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do 1 week. I think that's going to push us 1 week further back. I think if we were to follow a similar date sequence from 2017-18, which would be a start date on August 24th, that will get us to a last student day on that Thursday, which would be June 7th.
I myself I struggle with more than a week, but, I mean, so.
Well,
I just don't think the math will work out where we're going to be able to do that.
I just want to,
Right.
September 1st is a Friday.
Right.
So a week is into that week prior.
Yep.
So Jeff is just saying Thursday, Friday, right?
I'm saying Thursday, the 24th.
Thursday, Friday, and then the following week. So it's really a week and a day, Chris. I mean, just to be
Week
clear.
and 2 days. Same as 2017, 18. Correct.
Let's see if they can, if that's okay.
Because then it ends at an appropriate time. Otherwise, we're ending the week after, and then we're missing a weekend to have graduation.
I think all right, how about this? Okay? So, I'm fine with that, starting at Thursday, I suppose, because it is what we did before. But then, I think the board would, I guess we would make our desires clear to our superintendent that parents would be accommodated, those that this did impact for whatever reason, that they would be accommodated in school. So if there were students that missed out that first week as a result of whatever, that we're going to allow accommodations, not penalties for that. I'd be fine with that then.
What, the 24th, Jeff, so I'm looking at my calendar right now, so the 24th means what for graduation?
It would likely put us on graduation date of June 3rd.
First or second?
June 2nd. I'm just looking at the 2017.
June 1st is a Saturday and June 2nd is a Sunday.
Yeah, it'd be June 2nd.
So Sunday, June 2nd?
Yep.
Then it becomes a non-issue, is what you're saying.
It'd be what?
It's a non-issue for graduation.
Correct.
If we do the Thursday.
Correct.
Right. With the accommodations.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
I'd be okay with that too.
All right. Terry? Kevin? You guys okay with that?
I'd still kind of like to get the feedback from CD Schmidt.
Yeah. I think they just got our feedback, so.
Well, I know.
So that's your guidance.
Sure. Then we'll bring back a calendar for action in December that reflects a Thursday start and a June 2nd graduation.
Second, yes.
Yep.
And is that going to be, well, not that, yeah, we don't need, well, daytime, or is it, it's not going to be night, is it? Okay. So there was something cool about that idea at first, but then, I don't wanna. All right, that's enough of that. All right, any lasting discussions on this or comments? We're good? All right. All right, moving on. 2023-24 board calendar. Any comments or concerns about any of these dates? They really don't bother me, actually, so. All right, hearing none on that. Moving on, you've got item 9, information follow-up, financials, your personal information memo on communications and miscellaneous businesses authorized by law. I have none. Having no other business before this Board of Education, a motion to adjourn is in order. All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.